If you must marry again, let it be someone I can trust. Adora has been my maid for years. Obinna was surprised. Adora? Your maid? Yes, Nena replied firmly. She will not try to harm me or challenge my place as your wife. I trust her. Obinna shook his head. No, Nena, I cannot do this. You are my wife. You are my queen. I don't want to do this. But Nena persisted. Over weeks of discussion and emotional conversations, she finally convinced him to marry Adora, her maid. The wedding was simple and private. Adora was honored and vowed to always respect the queen. At first, she remained the humble, loyal maid she had always been. But everything changed the moment Adora became pregnant. She began to see herself as more than just the second wife. Her humility turned to arrogance. One morning, as Nena was sitting in the garden, Adora walked in with a proud strut. Good morning, Adora. Nena greeted warmly. Adora scoffed. It's Queen Adora now, for your information. Or have you forgotten? We now share the same bed with the king, Nena. Forget that I used to be your maid. Respect the future king's mother and address me properly. Nena's heart sank. I have not forgotten. You are also the queen, Adora. Why are you talking to me with this harsh tone? And Adora scoffed and said, Nena, I don't know who the hell you think you are. As far as I'm concerned, you are just an empty barrel. Common pregnancy you cannot carry. I came to save your life by getting pregnant for the kingdom, and you should address me as your queen from now on. Nena stared at her, stunned by her boldness. Over time, Adora's behavior worsened. She began to undermine Nena at every given opportunity. She forbade the servants from serving Nena and made cruel remarks about her childlessness. She treated the villagers with disdain, demanding excessive tributes and punishing those who could not meet her demands. One day, Nena overheard two servants whispering in the kitchen. Can you believe how Adora treats the queen? One said. She used to bow before her and now she acts like she owns the palace. Nena felt a pang of guilt. Had she made a terrible mistake by suggesting Adora to her husband? The tension in the palace reached a breaking point when Adora demanded that Nena move out of the queen's chambers to make room for her. You have no children, no heir, Adora said coldly. What right do you have to occupy the chambers of a queen? Nena was forced to move to a similar room, but her dignity remained intact. Meanwhile, King Obinna grew increasingly frustrated with Adora's behavior. Though he cherished the thought of his unborn child, he could not ignore the discord she was causing. Must you treat Nena this way? He asked one evening. She is not the mother of your heir, Adora replied. If only he knew how prepared Adora was. The days turned into weeks, and Adora's cruelty knew no bounds and had managed to gain significant control over the king's decision. Yet, despite her power, one thing continued to trouble her. King Obinna's heart still belonged to Nnenna. He still visited her chambers and sought her counsel on matters of the kingdom. This burdened Adora with jealousy. One night, Adora summoned her most trusted servant, a young woman named Amaka. Amaka, she said, I need your help. Anything, my queen, Amaka replied. I've heard of a powerful Sokra in a distant village, deep in the forest of Ogugu. They say he can create a potion that will make a man forget everything and love the only person who gives it to him. I must have it. Amaka hesitated. I have heard about him too, but the journey is dangerous. And the Sokra, I heard that one has to pay a big price for this help. I do not care about the costs. Adora snapped. I will give anything to be the only woman in the king's heart. After lying to the king, Adora and Amaka set out on their journey at dawn. They traveled for hours in a scary, lonely forest until they finally arrived at the home of the Sokra. What brings the Queen of Umora to my humble abode? He asked. Adora explained her desire. The Sokra listened silently, then chuckled. Adora said firmly. The Sokra handed her a vial of dark liquid. This potion will make the king forget your rival and love you alone. But in return, you must give me something precious. Your child will belong to me. Adora froze. When the child is born, he or she will come to me. Do you agree? Adora hesitated, but her ambition outweighed her maternal instincts. I agree, she whispered. Anything to separate Nnenna from the king. Pour this into the king's drink and his love for Nnenna will vanish. Adora returned to the palace with renewed determination. That night, during dinner, she sipped the potion into King Obina's palm wine. Drink, my king, she said sweetly. The king hesitated, sensing something odd, but Adora's pleading eyes convinced him. He took a sip and within moments, his gaze softened. Adora, he said, you are truly the light of my life. Adora's heart leaped for joy. The potion has started working already. Adora reveled in her new position. She sat on the throne beside Obinna, issuing commands and reveling in her power. However, the price of her ambition began to haunt her. Her unborn child, whom she had traded to the Sokra, moved restlessly in her womb, as if protesting her decision. One night, Adora was awakened by a chilling voice. Adora, it whispered, do not forget our deal. She sat up trembling. The Sokra's words echoed in her mind. Adora's days as queen were filled with bliss, but her nights were haunted by nightmares of the Sokra's warning. The dark shadows around the palace grew more ominous, and whispers of the curses began to circulate among the servants. Meanwhile, Queen Nnenna continued to live quietly in her small chamber, praying for strength and guidance as she bore the weight of her husband's rejection. One fateful evening, Adora began experiencing sharp pains in her abdomen. She cried out, and the palace was thrown into chaos. Adora lost the baby. Adora's anger turned to vengeance. She did this, Adora wailed, pointing a trembling finger at Nnenna. She gave me something to drink. She poisoned me. The king, who has been grieving, turned to Adora in shock. What are you saying, Adora? She poisoned me and this happened. I lost my child because of her. She killed our heir. My king, Adora sobbed. Though Obinna had once trusted Nnenna with all his heart, the seed of doubt that the potion had planted in his mind now began to grow. That night, Obinna summoned Nnenna to the throne room. Nnenna, he began, Adora believes you are responsible for the loss of the heir. Nnenna's eyes widened in disbelief. For the sake of peace, you must leave the palace. Tears streamed down Nnenna's face. You cannot send me away, Obinna. After all we've been through together, you will leave at dawn, Obinna said firmly. If anyone had told me that the king would ever turn his back on me, she would have called the person a liar. How did the loving man she married change overnight? At dawn, Queen Nnenna was escorted out of the palace with only a few belongings. She traveled to her father's house in a nearby village, where she was welcomed with open arms. As days passed, Nnena's mother noticed that something was wrong with her daughter. She was always falling sick, so she decided to invite the village physician to check her. Nnenna and her family couldn't believe their ears when the village physician told her that she was pregnant. Although her heart was heavy that her husband was not there to celebrate the good news with her, the knowledge of her pregnancy gave her hope. She spent her days in prayer and reflection, preparing for the arrival of her new child. Because she realized how evil Adora could be. She didn't want anything to happen to her unborn baby. Back in the palace, Adora's grief gradually turned into determination, and she knew another child was her only chance. She began to shower the king with affection. Months later, Adora announced she was pregnant again. But this pregnancy carried a dark secret. One evening, as Adora walked through the palace gardens, she was approached by Amaka, her loyal but cunning servant. "Your Majesty," Amaka said cautiously, "are you certain the king will not question the timing of this pregnancy?" Adora's face hardened. "He will not question anything. This child will be his heir, and that is all that matters." Amaka hesitated, but if anyone discovers, no one will discover anything because there is nothing to be discovered. Adora snapped, "Keep your mouth shut or you will regret it." Meanwhile, in her father's house, Nnena's pregnancy progressed. She later gave birth to a baby boy, whom she named Chibueze, meaning God is King. And Nnena knew that one day the truth would have come to light. As Adora's pregnancy progressed, her behavior became more erratic. She clung to the king, showering him with affection in public, but treating the servants with increasing cruelty. Quiet evening. As Adora lounged in her chambers, "Amaka, what do you want at this hour?" Adora asked sharply, and Amaka smiled slightly. "I only came to inform my queen that I've been listening closely." "Listening to what exactly?" she asked. "To you and Ekene," Amaka replied, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Your little secrets about the baby." With Ekene, her lover. One fateful night, Ekene confronted Adora in her chambers. "My queen, we cannot keep this secret forever. Oh. What if the king finds out? If you value your life, you will stay silent." But unknown to them, Amaka has been eardropping. Her suspicion has been right after all. Imagine what would happen if the king knew the truth. "You wouldn't dare, Amaka," she said. "Oh, but I might," Amaka said, her smile widening. "Unless, of course, you ensure that my loyalty is well rewarded." Amaka leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Power, gold, influence, and a place in the palace where no one dares question me." Amaka's threats left Adora in a constant state of fear. Every knock on the door made her heart race. She began to avoid Ekene entirely, terrified that their secret would slip out. Unknown to Adora, the potion effect on King Obinna had begun to wear off, little by little. Amaka, emboldened by Adora's fear, became bolder in her demands. One evening, she confronted Adora in the middle of the palace corridors. "My queen," she said loudly enough for nearby servants to hear, "don't forget our little agreement." Panic flashing across her face, she grabbed Amaka by the arm and dragged her into a secluded corner. "Keep your voice down, Amaka." "Then keep me happy," Amaka replied. King Obinna began to notice Adora's strange behavior. She was no longer confident, radiant woman he thought he had fallen in love with. Instead, she seemed nervous, distracted. "What's troubling you? You seem different." Adora forced a smile. "Nothing, my king. I am just overwhelmed with excitement about the baby. Amaka, emboldened by her newfound influence, grew increasingly brazen in her threats and demands. She squeezed every pound of luxury and power she could get from Adora, but her greed had no limits. And when Adora had no more to offer, she decided to spill her secrets to the servants. One fateful day, as Amaka lounged in her newly decorated chambers, she called upon a group of servants to deliver her message to the king. The servants were reluctant but obeyed. My king, one servant said cautiously, we have troubling information about the queen. King Obinna, already plagued by doubts and the faint echoes of the fading potion, leaned forward. Speak, he commanded. It is said by Amaka that Queen Adora's child may not be yours, my king. The throne room felt silence. The words struck Obinna like a thunderclap. He dismissed the servants and ordered a private meeting with Amaka, who had been eagerly waiting for the moment. Kak said, my king, the child Queen Adora carries is not yours. It belongs to the servant Ekene. I overheard their conversations myself and she made you chase the queen away. She added love potion to your drink. Obinna's face darkened with anger and disbelief. Do you have proof? Summon Ekene, Amaka replied confidently. His guilt will show on his face. Ekene was dragged into the throne room trembling with fear. Adora, unaware of the events unfolding, was summoned. When she arrived, her face turned pale at the sight of Ekene kneeling before the king. What is the meaning of this? Adora demanded. Obinna rose from his throne, his towering presence silencing the room. Adora, I demand the truth. Is the child in your womb mine? Adora stammered, her carefully constructed lies crumbling. Of course, my king. How could you doubt me? But Obinna's piercing gaze bore into her, and Ekene, unable to bear the pressure, broke down. My king, please forgive me, Ekene cried. The child is mine, but I swear it was never my intention to betray you. Adora! Silence! Obinna roared. Adora fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. My king, please. I only wanted to secure my place in the palace as queen. Forgive me. But Obinna's heart already hardened and was filled with disappointment and rage. As Adora and Ekene were escorted out of the palace, villagers cheered in excitement and also insulted them. Shame on you, Adora, one woman shouted. Adora clung to Ekene, her face streaked with tears and death. When they reached the edge of the village, the guards cast them out, their belongings scattered on the ground. Adora turned back one last time, her eyes meeting Obinna from a distance. She saw no sympathy, only cold resolve and hatred. That night, Obinna sat alone in his chambers, the weight of his mistakes pressing heavily on him. Obinna summoned his most trusted advisor. I must bring Unenna back, he said. She is the true queen of this kingdom. The advisor hesitated. It will not be easy, my king. She has been wronged deeply. I know, Obinna replied, his voice heavy with regrets. But I must carry myself and try to bring my queen back. I cannot allow my pride to keep her away any longer. Meanwhile, in her father's home, Nnenna was living in peace. Her son Chibueze had grown into a healthy, bright child. The villagers adored her, and she continued to lead with grace and wisdom, even in her exile. When news of Adora's banishment reached her, Nnenna felt a pang of pity, but also a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of justice. King Obinna had resolved to correct his mistakes and make amends with his true queen, Nnenna. On a bright morning, King Obinna dressed in his finest traditional attire befitting the occasion, accompanied by the kingdom's elders and guards, carrying gifts of kola nuts, yams, wrappers, and beads. The king set out for Nnena's father's house. As they approached the modest home, the villagers gathered, murmuring in awe. Obinna stepped out of his royal chariot, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. He knew he had much to atone for. Nnena's father, Chief Okoro, came out to greet the entourage, his expression unreadable. Igwe, what brings you to my humble home? Obinna bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. I have come to beg for forgiveness and to right the wrongs I have done to your daughter. Chief Okoro nodded slowly and gestured for them to enter. King Obinna's humbleness softened his heart. Inside the house, Nnenna sat with her son Chibueze, who was now almost 2 years old. When she saw Obinna enter, her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't seen him in years, and though the sight of him brought back painful memories, she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his eyes. Nnenna, King Obinna began, his voice trembling. I have come to beg for your forgiveness. I was blinded by deceit, and I failed to see the treasure I had in you. Please come back to the palace. You are the true queen of my kingdom. Nnenna's eyes filled with tears. Obinna, you broke my heart. You chose another over me and sent me away. How can I trust you again? Before Obinna could respond, little Chibueze toddled forward, clutching Nnenna's wrapper. Mama, Mama, he blabbed innocently, looking up at the king with wide eyes. Obinna's gaze shifted to the boy, and his breath caught in his throat. The resemblance was unmistakable. You had a child? Were you pregnant back then? Is he my son? His voice barely above a whisper. Nnenna nodded. Yes, his name is Chibueze. He is your son. Tears streamed down King Obinna's face as he knelt before the boy. My son, he said, his voice breaking. I never knew that you were pregnant. I am so sorry for everything. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me. The little boy looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. Chibueze then placed his tiny hand on King Obinna's cheek and tried to wipe away his tears. The room was silent except for the sound of sniffles as everyone watched the emotional moment unfold. Obinna spent the rest of the day with Nnenna and her family, expressing his deep regrets and sharing stories with his son. By evening, Nnenna finally agreed to return to the palace, but only after Obinna promised to treat her with the respect and love she deserved. The king returned to the palace and immediately began preparations for a grand celebration. Drummers, dancers, and musicians were summoned, and the palace was adorned with flowers and colorful decorations. The entire kingdom buzzed with excitement as news spread of the queen's return. The people roared with approval as Obinna lifted Chibueze onto his shoulders, declaring him the heir to the throne. That night, the palace was filled with laughter, music, and joy. King Obinna and Queen Nnenna sat side by side, watching Chibueze play with other children in the courtyard. I will never take you for granted again, King Obinna said, holding Queen Nnenna's hand, and I will always stand by you, my king. Together, they ruled the kingdom with wisdom and compassion, ensuring peace and prosperity for generations to come. And that was how the story ended. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Sorry about the glitch in my voice. I'm actually treating cold. I'm just struggling through the whole process of voicing the story because I need to keep my audience updated and, of course, to entertain you. Yes, you watching this video right now, and I really appreciate you. I do not take your time for granted. I also do not take your support for granted. Thank you for your support. Thank you for always watching my stories. You are the real MVP. If you're a returning subscriber, hey, you are the real MVP, right? Thank you so much for always coming back stories. All right, thank you so much. See you in my next video.